What's going on, workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And today we're talking about community feedback, Diablo Immortal Edition. In this, if you guys are new to the channel or to the series of community feedback, this is where we highlight your comments taken from either a video or a range of videos and bring them to light and discuss them here together and hopefully continue the conversation with you as well. So without further ado, Chris, who's up first?
So first, Miss Moon says, the guy's question isn't rude. Blizzard's response, don't you all have phones? It's tone deaf, and how tone deaf and unaware can you be? The dude on stage is getting booed, and all he has to say is to that. This is basically the new, you think you do, but you don't. And for those of you that haven't watched any of the footage around BlizzCon, basically a guy asked a question like,
yeah, is this coming to PC?
Is this coming to PC? Are you guys bringing anything to PC? And he says like, well, no, not really. And the guy pushes a little bit further, very polite, but still just kind of, as opposed to later, I think in the Q&A, somebody literally said, I have to ask, is this a late April Fool's joke?
I even think that
more disrespectful.
Maybe. The
Diablo director goes like he said, like, well, don't you have phones? And I think he was just caught off guard. So what do you think on this, Brian?
This literally just is the thing that kind of has percolated and has actually continued just to build my frustration. We talked about it. I get that putting Diablo on mobile is a good thing for the community and for everybody. Now, anybody feel free to go write why I'm an idiot below. Just because it's going to expose it. However, don't you all have phones is such a horrible in the moment response to the question in which I don't think they gave the guys on stage an out. We talked about it. The full announcement, essentially all he had to do is either walk off with one of two things. Hey, there is something coming for PC. We can't talk to you about it. We just need that hint. You just need to give them a feedback. If you go look at the history, especially this year, Pokemon Go did it. Hey, Pokemon Go, it's not going to be core, but don't worry, that's coming. You look at actually, there's been multiple times that they've said, like Elder Scrolls. Hey, we're bringing Elder Scrolls to the phone. Oh, and don't worry, Elder Scrolls 6, walk off stage. Those are two very well handled examples of how this could have been done. I don't think Blizzard gave these guys an out. The out essentially then is, don't you all have phones? Which then the response has been like, that actually frustrates me. Like, yes, I have a phone, but I'm not going to play your game on it. It's like, oh gosh. And so since then, like even my rational mind knows like this is overall going to be a good move. I don't know if it's going to be a good move now based off how they've handled it, how they've responded. Not necessarily a Blizzard highlight, in my opinion, but like this actually just frustrate me because to me, the response is like either get on board or get out to your core audience. And that's not their intention. Like that's not what they're shooting for. But Absolutely. this literally is just so freaking frustrating to that concept.
The fair thing to point out here is that, to my knowledge, D3, I think it was SC2 and Hearthstone are all three titles that were not first announced by Blizzard at BlizzCon. Mm-hmm. So to say that they didn't announce D4 here, so they don't care about the Diablo audience, I think a lot of this just came down to the presentation was done poorly. This shouldn't have been the closing act. Based on the technical issues that I experienced at BlizzCon, this may not have been the original act. There's no way to know. They're not going to come out and openly admit that, oh yeah, here's how we screwed that up. Yeah. But it is quite possible that this wasn't intended to be the final moment, that it was intended to just be. But all it took in my mind, granted, if for all we know, he was supposed to present on the Hearthstone stage, in which case he wasn't even like, if he had like visual aids or anything to help him, they weren't there because now he's at a stage because the microphones didn't work on the first stage. So like all it would have taken in my mind is a projector behind him showing like the number 4 in the Diablo font and him just being like, guys, I'm here to talk about mobile. Like, I don't even know what why is everybody cheering? Yeah. Like I have nothing else to tell you. And there's just a giant 4 that pops up and disappears. That is all it took. But instead, I think he got put on edge and he's a is his job title dev, right? He's a senior dev, so he's not hired for his like charismatic salesmanship. He's not here as like a voice actor or something where he's used to kind of this outward thing,
give and take. Yeah,
what feels probably like an attack after he is kind of managing projects that he can't tell us about, and this project or whatever his role is, and then I think he just said offhand, like, why do you want this on PC? It's a phone game. Wouldn't you want to play it on a phone? Maybe you don't have a phone? Like, and that all ran through his head too quick. And he just said, like, oh, don't you have phones? And then now that's it. Now he has to wake up in cold sweats.
It's memed for all eternity. It's don't you have, so like somebody even responded like in a comment, like, don't you have a phone? Of course I do have a phone.
Oh, thank God he's not running for political office, because like
this is the moment.
Career ending.
Yeah, that's the moment where it's like, and so and so got elected because of this one.
How did you lose your job? I made one statement.
But again, like I think the core of it though is that the don't you have phones, and I think why it sinks in and just angers me is that it just, and I talked about this a little bit, is that in asking the question, are we even the majority of gaming culture now? Like our gamers who are just passionate, who grew up in PC, are we the core? When you talk about 1 billion gamers and 100 million, of that, is, where you're buying into the systems and the games, and they sell Diablo like 3 or 4 million, like you're talking about a very small percentage of the potential market, the potential audience. The rational mind in me gets that this is a good thing for Blizzard and a good thing for exposing the game, assuming on how they deliver on microtransactions, assuming how they deliver the experience. If it goes in and it just feels like they're just constantly in your pockets, if it goes in and it feels like, I think one person I read, because like you guys, you got to play it. You got hands-on with it.
I did.
Somebody said that it feels like Diablo. It just doesn't seem to have the soul of Diablo. And that's a reviewer that I read. And again, this is a review is somebody's opinion about the thing, having not touched.
The soul of Diablo, in my opinion, has a lot to do with the looting system and that very like, I got loot. How did it roll? Like I'm doing meth runs for 4 hours and I got nothing new. Like that's the soul. So to say that a demo that didn't allow you to adjust your talents, didn't allow you to see your inventory, like it allowed you to basically take a pre-built level 20 character through like one zone. The Nintendo one, they let you clear one greater rift. And when I got to 99%, it didn't let it end early. It just let me clear one greater rift that was for an amount of time, not for completion. And to say that didn't have soul when it's a game that literally doesn't even have a launch date yet, so they're not done making changes.
Yeah,
that's far from fair.
Yeah.
But one thing I'd point out is, I just Googled this, is PCNgames.com. Like I'm sure I could find any other press and see this. Fortnite was it was played by nearly 80 million players in August alone. And in its first just over a year had 125 million players. When we talk about a major MMO, right? An MMO is such a loose term these days. Yeah. Everything is massive, everything is multiplayer, and everything is tied to being online. So it just doesn't really mean a whole lot. But if we put Diablo in the mix, we put World of Warcraft in the mix, we put Final Fantasy in the mix, we talk about numbers like 10 million players. Wow. Who knows? Maybe they have 20 million players. I mean, even if we double the largest estimates of these, they just aren't even in the ballpark of Fortnite. So to say that a game can't be a major title and be capable of running on a phone isn't true. To say that a game, should be ignored if it's on a phone because it's going to have a monetization thing that just locks things behind paywalls and it's just like, oh, I'm here to rob you blind. That's not true. Like Fortnite doesn't do that. Hearthstone doesn't do that. So like to say that a mobile game has to be there. Now there's a reason those stereotypes exist, but I just,
well,
I think what's intolerant here is don't you all have phones? So like, thank you, this movie. This movie. We have a ton of great comments.
Yeah, we do, and we got to get to them. The one thing I will point out to your critique, Chris, is that every game you named is playable on mobile and on PC and on console. Like that is the one core difference between that, and I think that ties into the concept and what the emotion and what I feel is that I feel disregarded. Like, don't you have a phone, you dumb? I'm gonna believe that. That's how I feel. That's how I take that. Like, yeah, I have a phone. I'm not gonna play your game on it. I would play your game on it if it was where I was, and then I can enhance that experience. But anyway, Brian writes, "Love you guys. Y'all are great. I'm even a Patreon. Sorry, it's only $1, not more. Brian, we thank you for your support. It doesn't matter. Just even being here, we're always thankful for each one of you. But I feel you're kind of missing the point. Brian, you're upset because you can't play on other platforms. But this is not a full-fledged gaming experience. Why would you want to play this? You should be mad that it even exists. I've downloaded and played many free mobile games out of boredom and curiosity, and many of them are exactly the same. Diablo Immortal looks no different. People are upset because they've seen this. They know what it is. They know what the goals of the developer are. Brian, you're right. Thank you. If this is somehow connected to the actual game, then it would be creative and innovative, but it's not. It's a mediocre reskin cash grab. Chris, you're saying it feels good, looks good, plays good, but trust me, every mobile game feels like that because they are literally all the same game. They're all funish for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, but behind the descent, or the decent, one of the words, either way, gameplay is the real issue. Microtransactions, repetitive screen mashing with little strategy needed and no desire at all from developers to innovate the mobile gaming experience. Diablo Immortal, sadly, will make them money, and that's all they care about.
So my first response is, do companies care about money? Yes. Like, absolutely. So like, to say that this is a cash grab, everything that these companies have ever done is a cash grab. To think that they would spend time developing a game and then release it and say, I hope to God that people who play it love it, but that it's not enough people that we make money. Like, that's just not true. They want people to make money. Now, one of the things that's commonly respected about Blizzard is that they have had the willingness to take things like Project Titan, among others, and they have frequently said at BlizzCon that Mike Morhaime, as he's leaving Blizzard, made a statement at Blizzard, we have canceled more games than we have published. What pays for that? You can't have that and not occasionally have them lean into some money, because those are teams with hopefully well-paid, well-taken care of developers, because they have these brilliant teams trying to make something into a game, and they get it all the way to the playtesting stage, and they just don't feel that it's right. Mm-hmm. It's just now, and the only time, to my knowledge, in their history that they've ever made any money off of that is they sold a game to THQ in like the late 90s that they felt was going to compete with StarCraft. So they thought it was a decent game, but it wasn't something they could push out. And every other game since then, if they have felt that it's going to infringe on existing property, or it is not going to be fun, or it's going to split a platform, or it's not going to be able to deliver in some way or another, they have canceled it. So to say that they're going to reach out and make some money where they can seems logical to me. I'm sure one of the other comments kind of goes into this, but like, a lot of people are saying, well, this really kills the Diablo platform. Are you telling me that if they come out tomorrow and say, okay, now we're ready, D4, it's coming out, are we just not going to play it now because they are coming out with Diablo Immortal? Like, Diablo Immortal is not required to be on your phone. It's not required to install. And is it going to be fun forever? No, it's going to be fun probably for about as long as Pokemon Go is. Mm-hmm. It has to run on this piece of hardware, and people still run around with iPhone 5s and 6s. So like, they have to not only be able to run on phones, they have to be able to run on old phones. They have to be able to not take up very much bandwidth because people don't appreciate their data rates being charged up. They have to be able to not take up very much hard drive space. They have to be able to not make their phone run hot. So they are very limited. And all you have to interact with the phone is 2 thumbs. Any more than that, and the gameplay gets too complex on a smaller phone. So the UIs are largely the same in all these games because there's kind of the best UI that's accepted right now. So
yeah, like, it ends up running into why like people call MMOs WoW clones. Like, oh, well, no, WoW actually ended up establishing a control scheme that essentially is generally accepted among everybody, to the point where you don't have to go and completely relearn how to play a game when going into it. Now, I will take umbrage with some of your points. Like, I do agree from, like, you know what, everything a business does is to make money, to grow the business, and it's all, I guess, about kind of the soul behind it. You know, like, I don't think Blizzard's out to deceive. I honestly think that it speaks to their overall narrative that we've been kind of feeling lately, is a kind of a disconnect with their core audience, like who they made PC games, now they've gone console, and there's a general, and it's not that anything that they're doing is actually, I would say, wrong. Their goal as a business is to make money, to take care of the people so they can make more products and make more games, etc. as somebody who is, and I'm not going to sit here like I played a ton of 1 and played 2, but I didn't get into this kind of end game cycle with 2, but played a ton of 3. Seem to be on the odd number ones. As somebody who has generally followed the story, who has generally been invested in the world and lore, who's kind of also been on the hope for a Diablo MMO. I think that from like when you look at Blizzard's properties, Warcraft I was never big into RTS, so I didn't necessarily have that immediate connection with Warcraft. At the end of the day, though, like I definitely consider myself like if I look at those 2 big RPG properties, I definitely go Diablo, and have always kind of like, man, what could they do with the Diablo MMO? Like, what would that look like? And then they sit here and pretty much kind of, like you said, the term MMO is so watered down and overused and understood anymore that there's like everybody's got their own definition, which is not actually a good thing in my opinion. But they talk about the stories that they're going to tell about these characters that existed between the 20 years of 2 and 3. And as somebody who's a fan of that world, who would love to experience the stories, to see what happened, to live through that, it's frustrating. If this was a reskin Diablo 3, if this was this is just Diablo 3, which you've already played, which you already are playing, and now we've just kind of made it simplified for the mobile, I wouldn't be as impacted. But it just seems that, like I've said, it's the wrong audience. It was the wrong venue. It was. However, though, but to Brian's point here, we're talking about like, well, I should be mad that it even exists. I can't be, because I recognize that you need to be able to bring in fans. You need to be able to get people who are like, hey, here's this interesting thing on my phone. Oh my gosh, there's something else. That something else, though, the fact that there is a disconnect there, it doesn't help bring in an immediate fan base. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because they're still developing this game. It's still, probably a long ways away. And all that being said, time is the best healer for any kind of frustration and outrage. Pretty much their best move, in my opinion, is just be quiet, go build the best game they can, come back. If they were able to bring in Diablo fans from the kind of the storefront, they'd be getting all kinds of press and all kinds of media, But the fact that it's only on their phones, I think is actually going to hurt them in the long run. People aren't really streaming Fortnite on their phones. People aren't really streaming these games. I'm not going to go get a setup so I can stream Diablo Immortal on my phone. and that's, I think, when you look at the overall market, when you look at all the things that drive how people get invested in these long-term platforms, it's going to be that. I don't actually think this is a cash grab. I think they thought that this would be a way to kind of get it out there, but I think the way that they're reacting, the way that the audience is reacting, and everything from there, that it's just going to end up falling flat on their face.
So thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian. There's a ton of great comments here. And I feel like I have to defend Blizzard a little bit, because somebody has to point out that this game may not be awful. Like, there's no reason to not have hope. Yes, there are a number of times we've been burned by this industry, but ideally this is being backed by a company we know and love, even if they're not the ones being the core developers. And so ideally that's what gives me a reason to think that this could be different. Now, there is a risk that this is just a licensing thing and they're just letting NetEase run loose with the Diablo name in trade for a chunk of money. I mean, that's effectively the relationship between Blizzard and Activision, right? Is Activision says, as long as you make us money, you can do whatever you want. And Activision, and the benefit of that is that we don't have Activision's creative ideas spilling into Blizzard games, and so that's a good thing. Except in this case, the parent company is the one we like, and the subsidiary developer is not the one we like. So
essentially, but then also there's that connection with like other games of that genre, other games in that area and space, that it's like. I think there's a comment that we'll get to, and we might as well just jump into it now, is that, it's people made Diablo clones on the phone, and those same people are making the Diablo game on the phone. So it's, like, are we really getting a great experience? NetEase, here it is, Johnny Rockin. NetEase is making a Diablo ripoff. Blizzard actually copied a Diablo ripoff to make Diablo, and that's just sad.
My counter to that would be that Diablo has shaped largely the view of the mostly single player RPG dungeon crawler looter, where you replay content levels are somewhat procedurally generated. It's centered on loot. The loot can drop in rarity, and you just replay the same content over and over to level up a character that's from a set number of classes. Like, that recipe is what Diablo exists in, but there are other games like that, and they all feel like Diablo clones, because whether or not that style of play existed before Diablo doesn't matter. Just like World of Warcraft was not the first MMO.
Right.
The MMO that has defined the genre.
Well, that's what Blizzard does, though. They look at various genres and then they go in and really, and not just define them, but refine them.
Overwatch is doing it.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's like, but you look at that, it's like kind of like same thing with everything. Every game that Diablo has made has existed before, but they just go in and they put a level of polish, a level of quality, a delivery, that is just that I think that's where a lot of the shock comes into this in the play, as somebody who plays their games on PC and now on console and being able to experience it that way. All of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute. Now there's things that can tie into that. We talked about, like just concepts with mobile in and of itself. You look at Activision in and of itself. You look at EA. You look at a lot of these monetization things that I honestly think that people, we were making an assumption, because people are like, just wait till they announce how they're going to monetize this game. And I go, I'm actually not worried about the monetization, because if it's bad, then I'm just going to avoid it anyway. And I'm planning on avoiding this game, unfortunately, because of just the platform. And it's not having to do with monetization. I'm just not a mobile phone gamer. But then at the core of it, monetization, I think people are expecting now, because of they connect mobile games with things that are trying to deceive you, that gotcha mentality, because there is a huge overarching connection to that. If that makes sense, Chris, where like, let's say there are some mobile games that are really done right that don't feel like they're robbing you, but it does feel like the vast majority of those games that exist out there are not. Like, it's like, no, I put this out here, I'm here to make as much money as possible, and then I'm out.
You could say the very same thing that most subscription-based MMOs reuse content to create filler patches to justify the subscription. I mean, are there patterns in certain types of games? Yes. Are there some of those patterns we're willing to tolerate more than others? Obviously. Right. I mean, we're willing to tolerate annualized games like FIFA and like Call of Duty that just literally drop these games every year with very little change. We're in the middle of Stormblood now, and we feel that it's a rehash of the previous expansion. We're in the middle of BFA, and we're already starting to see a pattern that was in Legion. It's the same content that was done the first time around in Legion. So, like, to say that there is patterns that frustrate us, absolutely. But what I think is unique here is kind of what Lagtastic starts to hit on. I understand the desire to have games available on every device and interconnected. My concern is exactly what happened with Final Fantasy XIV with PS3, where the game is held back because of inferior hardware, and no phone is going to match my gaming rig and the reliability. Is this realization that, like, at the same time content is being developed, we have to progress. And so I think there's this general fear that progression is bad. And I disagree. Like, do we have to drop PS3? Yes. Will this game have to be simplified to be played on phone? Yes. But can that be for the betterment of games long term? Absolutely. Sitting in the WoW Classic panels really just showed me how far World of Warcraft has come since Classic dropped. And so, is this game a step forward technologically? I think so. Even if this game is inferior from like a total gameplay element standpoint, even if this game is simplified to run on weaker hardware, it's still running on hardware that is more powerful than what Diablo 1 could run on. Like, that's just how powerful old phones are now.
Yeah.
So I think that people forget that, like, as we move into an age where we start to talk about the possibility of cloud-based games, and we talk about the possibility of cross-play across platforms like phone, like console, like PC, if you're not making a push to see what your base, your player base, and your gaming content would look like on a phone, then when it comes time to make that jump, you're going to be late to the party.
Mm-hmm. And the question is can you survive that lag? And then I like the name Lagtastic, because there's 2 points that I want to kind of harp on. First one is that I know PS3 gets a lot of hate, but PS3 was not holding 14 back. A lot of people like to assume that. A lot of people like to throw that argument out. PC was actually the biggest weakness of Final Fantasy 14 prior to that. The specs, the minimum specs for 14 to run were much lower than that of a PS3. It was a Core 2 Duo. It was not a powerful machine. That's really a good testament to the client of the game. Obviously, PS3 was not a proper experience, especially because you played on PS3. I've actually played on PS3. When you go to PS3 to PS4, it's like, holy smokes! You just wow.
I thought it would make me better because it was so much different. It was actually so much different. I wasn't initially better.
Yeah, because you were.
I was running out of things to anticipate. I was like, oh, I have to start running now, or I won't make it. And so there was all these times that I was running around in fights not doing DPS because I was just assumed I would have to fight the lag that didn't exist.
Etc. So there was definitely, it was good that Final Fantasy I got off PS3. The other side of it, though, and this is kind of why I kind of really enjoyed your name from Lagtastic, is that this is also a temporary thing as we move and as the investment in cloud gaming and that game streaming becomes more and more prevalent. It's a matter then it's like, oh, my internet, it's like at some point that should not be a problem. As technology progresses, this should not become a problem. Everybody, hopefully internet keeps getting better, keeps getting faster, the technology behind it keeps getting better, and thus eventually we get to the point where you can have a console or PC gaming experience on your handheld. And so, the theory then ends up being that the games are running on servers, and then they're not actually running on the hardware, and the hardware that you're on is just the window into it. And then in theory, you could play 14 on a PS3 because it's just acting as a kind of a gateway into the modern game itself. You could play Diablo into that. Excuse my voice there. And so from that core concept, though, is that the interconnectivity is for me is hugely important, and it doesn't necessarily matter the experience. If somebody is having a different UI, a different kind of experience on the phone, I think it should be up to the gamers and the developers to literally make that decision what's best for them. If I want to pick up and continue on that, then by all means, maybe I have to say that certain things I'm not going to be able to do or participate in, or maybe it's just not advantageous for me to come on the raid on my phone while you guys are on your gaming machines because there might be an issue. But I think that should be left up to the gamers themselves to make that decision for us as a group, to where it's like, you know what, you don't have a high-end gaming PC, but you can come join in, and if it doesn't hurt us and we're all buds, then who cares? It's like that's our decision to make at that point, not some kind of arbitrary wall. And that's why I kind of push a lot for crossplay. That's where I look at these games and these don't split these communities up. Like Diablo Immortal is dividing the community in and of itself. Ideally, it's not actually dividing the community exists. It's going to divide the community that comes in. And the question is how do we want to welcome in that community? And hopefully it's with open arms and telling them that, hey, did you like this? You're really going to like this.
But if it can't support the level of detail and everything, that's a good excuse to not put it in a very graphic state. So to maybe kind of lower that ESRB type feel to it.
Yeah.
So it could be very easy to see how my nephew has a friend with a phone, and my nephew is 5. So whether or not your parenting views on phones, to say that young kids don't have phones is just not true anymore. And so there is this entire player base out there that don't have Nintendo Switches. They don't have gaming rigs. And so we look at we talk about this a lot when we talk about Nintendo. They have an entire generation of aging gamers. And then I have friends, whose daughter's like, oh my gosh, I love Rayman.
Yeah.
I love Rayman. Don't you love Mario? And who's Mario? That's an opportunity. So Diablo reaching out and reaching onto platforms where there are players who we don't identify with is good for Blizzard long term. They can't make their whole living off of me and my friends who might suddenly get busy raising kids or working at a job and not spend a lot of money with them. You can't run a company off of an aging and shrinking population. So at some point it's going to have to shift to people I don't identify with because I'm not the most profitable demographic anymore.
That sucks when that happens.
It was nice being the center of attention, but I'm just not there anymore. I'm getting a little too old for that. But, obviously my opinion still matters a little bit because Finodroid says, sorry, I don't like the opinions of Work To Game and most gaming press because they sell out to Blizzard. This game is a cash grab, and doing it in the main event of BlizzCon was a disrespectful move of Blizzard, pushing a product that no one asked for.
I love the first half. I agree with the second half, but I love that first half. I have yet. I guess if they are sending money, that we have yet to receive it to either of our houses. So that would be nice. I would
You know how
love to.
much time it would have saved me at BlizzCon to get a press pass? I waited in a line that told me you have to wait in another line. The press people just walk in, just stroll on in. So like having the green border on my badge would have been incredible, even if I had to still pay for my own ticket.
I like that. Also, they were bundled with that. So Work to Game and Gaming Press. So we made it. We did it.
We did. We're here. We can shut it down. We're going to our first fan fest, and we are on the same level as IGN. You heard it here first. So
keep it locked.
And we did it all by selling out to Blizzard, who is the subject of like 10 of our 1,200 videos. So like Fenno, if you're only getting our Blizzard videos, that is probably from an interest of Blizzard over Square Enix. But just for any of you guys new to the community, we are just gamers. We just like gaming. We aren't even in like our wildest dreams approaching like the minimum wage from 1995 doing this channel, assuming that the webcams we bought and everything was free. So like we do this because we like games, not because any developer, much less Blizzard, is somehow like backdoor, providing all this for us. So like if that's ever how we come across, I appreciate that you think that we're that formal, but we just aren't. Now the second half of this comment, to say this game is a cash grab and doing it in the main event has really been the core issue here.
Yeah.
The core issue is that they came out, they did it last, they acted like it was a big deal, and they thought that if they just carried it through with confidence that we would think it's a big deal, and we don't. So do I think that was disrespectful? Yes. Pushing a product that no one asked for, that's kind of inherent to any new product, because we didn't know to ask for Hearthstone. We didn't know to ask for Overwatch. And whether or not those are properties you care about, they do have a big player base now. So Blizzard coming out with new products is very rare. This is a game that's been around since the 90s, and they're still running off of Warcraft, StarCraft, Diablo, Hearthstone, Overwatch. Heroes of the Storm is just kind of made up of this stuff. So like 6 properties? Even if you separate World of Warcraft and Warcraft 3, 7 properties in like 30 years. They don't make moves very often. So to say that the Diablo market needs to move into mobile, that's not something we would have ever asked for, even if it was true. I just think the way they presented it was indeed disrespectful. So I agree with you there.
All right, Shadow Song 6 says, in an era where phones are more and more powerful, more and more expensive, more and more a part of our everyday lives, I will still never understand why in the hell anyone would want to play a game on a tiny screen. With terrible clunky controls rather than an ultra-wide 4K monitor and a nice mechanical keyboard or a nice 55-inch TV with a controller in their hand. I get it. Phones are powerful and can do some amazing things these days, but why? Oh, it's portable. You can play anywhere. Newsflash. I don't want to play anywhere. I want to play at home with a large screen and comfortable controls. I want to play for hours, not a few minutes on my lunch break or while waiting in a line.
I think that's back to who they're trying to market this to. If you're somebody that can afford your own dedicated 55-inch TV with a recliner and, like an elite controller, I don't think that this game is for you. If you can wait in line and just be patient and not have to have your hands in a game, I don't think this game is for you. My nephew can't do that. Like taking him to a furniture store is like literally the meanest thing you could ever do. Stand around, don't touch anything. Like that just isn't the patience level that he has built in yet. Mm-hmm. And when you see a kid losing it at church because church runs an hour long and their parents have had them dress nice since 2 hours before it started, and they're being kids. I know we can talk about that as an opportunity to try to build that patience and be a good parent and all that, but you have to also try to, for a second, empathize and say, like, what we're asking of them is a lot for a 5-year-old. So what do you think, Brian?
I literally would say, here's how I fix all of this. Here's how I fix Diablo Immortal. Here's how I fix this exact thing. Because Shadow Song is exactly my thought. Like, I want to play games where I play games, where I'm comfortable playing games, where I enjoy playing games. When I'm out and about and stuff like that, it's not where that's at. However, this is how it all is fixed. Apple event, they're announcing their new phone. That's when you make this announcement. That's when, just like they invited Nintendo up on the stage to talk about Mario Run, that's when we're inviting Blizzard, great games. They're going to be bringing Diablo to the phone. That's the audience. That's the news. That's the headline. That goes all over the place. Blizzard, getting into the mobile gaming space. Investors all of a sudden get happy. People are happy in Apple. Everybody starts talking about how this is a positive thing. Gamers are home. They're not spending money to see this announcement. They're playing games where they play games. Then they ask the question, hey, is this coming to any other console? They say, no, right now we're just doing the mobile thing, but we've got something coming for you that we think you're going to like. And that's how this is all solved. This is that because it's the right place, the right audience, and Blizzard completely misread that. You talk about like the kid and like he's 5 and he's doing all these things. That's like I think the number one rule of public speaking is know your audience. And that was absolutely apparent. Back to our first comment from Miss Moon, all the way through the reaction and the fallout and everything that's been said. They did not know their audience.
And Benno pointing out it was disrespectful because it was at the main event.
Yeah.
And it wasn't what this audience asked for. I agree. I 100% agree that if this had been Apple said, hey, there's a guy that I don't know if any of you know named J. Allen Brack. He's going to come on the stage with a friend from this tiny little game called Diablo. Mm-hmm. And that, hey, I know that the phones are ready for pre-order today, but here's an app we're going to be putting on it, and it's available now. Mm-hmm. Would have all downloaded it.
Everybody would have gone out and downloaded it.
We asked for it or not. We would have all downloaded it. So it would have had, oh wow, it had 100 million downloads in one day. That's
top of the charts, all that press. That's how this is fixed. The thing is, they can't go do that now because it's like
it's way too late.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think they cancel it. I just think that it's just they need to figure out what they want to do and how they want to communicate to gamers. I love this next comment. Mary Cat 7218 says, Xbox, we've got Halo. PS4, we've got God of War. Nintendo, we've got Zelda. PC, we have wait a minute. Mobile, smirk.
It's a funny comment, but I would point out that those first 3 are not only game developers, but also platform developers. Mm-hmm. And so they have exclusives, and we've talked a lot about exclusives on this channel and whether or not they have a place in gaming. But PC doesn't own Diablo. Blizzard owns Diablo. It's already been on consoles. It's already been on PC. So I think this is funny.
I think it's hilarious.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious. And the number of Diablo Immortal memes that I have like on the flight, I looked at one and I was like literally shaking my chair. It is funny. And I know there's like full grown adults who have been game developers their whole lives and this is their plan. And we are just mocking what they spent trying to get this prepared. But it is funny. It's a huge misstep by Blizzard. It's a misstep in who they picked as an audience, when they decided to announce it, how they decided to announce it. But I would point out that this is not meant to take on Halo, God of War, or Zelda. This is literally meant to take on, at best, Fortnite, at best, Hearthstone, at best, Puzzles and Dragons. If you don't know what that is, you're maybe not into mobile gaming. Like, there are huge games out there that dominate the mobile space. This is meant to be better than like a Farmville. And I don't know, like, we sat down to record this video and I was upset about Diablo Immortal. We sat down to record this video and I've been upset at Blizzard for the way they chose to handle Diablo Immortal. And then as I read these comments, I found myself like saying, but I don't think it's as bad as everybody's making it.
I hope you're right.
I think it's weird that I'm the optimist here. Brian's always the optimist.
It is. Well, it's just the thing. It's like, I really have enjoyed Diablo. We don't really talk about it. We don't really have like a channel or like a series focused.
I like phone games.
I just don't.
And I don't have a good phone game right now.
I just don't.
Because they only last a few weeks.
Yes.
And that was absolutely right. Well, that's fine. Just give me this one for a few weeks. I only need so many games to span the whole year if they can all put in a few weeks.
When I look at it, when it's like, okay, could an MMO light version of Diablo, some kind of concept, could that really consume my life? And I answer the question. I answer yes. It's like absolutely. Like if I don't have to be separated because they're talking about crossplay for Diablo 3, and that day that comes is probably the day you're going to see me doing a lot more playing of Diablo. Because right now the question is that I play on either PC or on Xbox. And so if I wanted to play on the Xbox, I'm cut off from anybody on PlayStation. I'm cut off from anybody on Switch. I'm cut off from anybody on PC. And it's like, okay, like that's one of the strengths I think of 14. I think the games that we really enjoy are games that aren't broken down or separated by walls. Sure. And I just
we play games to play with friends, not to enjoy epic, difficult gaming experiences or the most beautiful graphic. Those are things we like, but they're not required.
Right. Well, game visuals are often hype because they are easy to put up on a poster and from a marketing perspective, but it's all about the gameplay. And I think the loop that they've established with Diablo has been very strong, and it's something that I think that speaks to me personally. I do not care that it's on mobile, and that's the problem. I'm not excited about it.
The question is about all of this. When you ask how upset should we be, did you care about mobile prior to this announcement?
Like playing on mobile? No.
Any game.
I like that games exist in that space. I like business-wise. I'm glad Mario is now on mobile. I'm glad that
but you don't
Fortnite is on mobile. Yeah, but I can also see past what I care about, and I can see that there is a gaming audience there.
And
Mario, does that make sense?
Mario came out with its mobile. When did Mario Run came out?
Like in January.
Mario Odyssey, right?
No, Odyssey came out. I think
Odyssey
after.
First?
Yeah, Run was first.
Okay, so here's a good one. So if they come out with a 2D Mario next year,
they are. Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. Are you going to play it?
Yes. Not on phone, but like on the Switch.
But the fact that they sold out to a heavily monetized like game cash grab model with Mario Run, doesn't that there's a fair number of people that are upset that Mario Run wasn't free, and it was really just a mishandled press announcement that made it not free. Mm-hmm. That made people upset, in my opinion. So I don't think it damaged the franchise at all.
No, not how.
And I don't think Diablo Immortal is going to damage the franchise. I hate Diablo now. I don't think
they do. I think they. Well, I mean, maybe they hate it now, but all it's going to we just had the elections in this country. There's something maybe that you to be excited about or to be upset about. All it takes right now is time. They have to distance themselves from this announcement. They have to learn what the heck they.
Yeah, there's 15 signs on my street, and only one of those signs is for somebody who won last night.
Yeah.
A lot of upset people on my street. I guarantee that.
But what I'm saying is that time is going to heal. So are people upset now? Yes. Do they have a right to be upset? Absolutely. Do people have the right to argue that they're being entitled? Yes. I think it's all about the conversation as long as it's being done with respect. Mario, I think, was my hope with Mario, and the fact they charged it was to hopefully help try to train people that everything isn't this gotcha mechanic. So I respected Mario's monetization model. The fact is, they'll let you play a couple levels. If you like it, buy it. We're not going to sit here and just nickel and dime you for the rest of eternity so that you can do whatever. I think also when you look at monetization and that whole concept, I see a lot of people, with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. We don't really cover that game on this channel. But as far as it goes, it's something I've kind of followed with great interest. Initial reaction was that they have a monetization scheme that's unfair. People that I know playing the game said it's fine. Then I go back and talk to those same people, and now they're feeling it. All of a sudden, it's now there's some real grind to it. So I think it's like anything. It's all of a sudden, what is our objective? What are we trying to accomplish? What is the end goal? And that's where I think all of it comes to play. The best thing that Diablo Immortal can do is to make the best game that they can make, and to make it a fair monetization system. And then also, yeah, they've already shot themselves in both foot. They can't. The only thing they can do, the only thing they can really do now, learn and then make the decisions. That the story that you hear next about Diablo Immortal is, man, I can't, I have to get another phone because I'm burning through my battery. People cannot put this game down. That's the only way this is salvageable.
Square Enix Record Keeper gets a lot of attention from its player base, and its monetization model absolutely drains you of money.
Oh yeah, I don't play that. I just don't play.
I met people
games.
this weekend that I had never met anybody who'd given money to it, and I met a group that spends money on it. And as a group, the amount of money that they had spent was crazy, absolutely nuts. So a lot of this seems to be centered around the way they announced it, the time they announced it. I don't think it's going to hurt Diablo as a franchise. I don't think it's going to hurt Blizzard as a company. I think it's something they can learn from. And I think that they shouldn't give up on the mobile space. It's somewhere they should be. But the way they've handled this announcement has also drawn into questions of YouTube mechanics, especially because this has drawn in people who maybe don't traditionally go out and look for things on YouTube. Anytime there's an outrage, it draws people to the platform who don't spend 40 minutes every day watching videos. And so they're not used to YouTube drama. So like Nazgul here says, you think you're angry now realize they're actively manipulating their downvotes and negative comments at a furious pace.
And so what this is actually in reference to is that there's multiple videos that were uploaded and a lot of downvotes. And so some people noticed that at some point there was maybe 400,000 downvotes, and then later there was 300,000 downvotes and things like that. And so this kind of ties into things that we don't have intimate knowledge of, but we do have some level of understanding. Is that there's multiple videos. So like from people reporting the downvotes, that there could have been that somebody saw one in a different country and had a higher level of downvotes because there's a separate one was uploaded by NetEase, one was uploaded by Blizzard. Those are two separate videos. They're not going to
do that when you want to have a wave of chances for something exposed.
Yeah.
So if NetEase has a good visibility rating within a certain country, you would want them to upload a video, but then they may not have that same level of influence in like the United States. The
only way I know of actually getting rid of downvotes is to delete the video and then re-upload. So and I maybe that happened. And I can't say that they didn't do that. The other thing that I have to always wonder is because we see sometimes like a kind of a downvote, the concept of dogpiling, but also then maybe not even watching the video where the system's always trying to look for people botting, in and of itself. So there's a chance that through kind of negative fan reaction, there's just this flood of people going to I'm going to let them know I'm not happy. I'm not going to watch the video. I'm just going to click on it before the even ad is finished playing. I'm hitting downvote and I'm out. So essentially there's a public counter, and then I'm wondering, and this is just what I've actually always kind of theorized about the platform, if there's some, algorithm behind the scenes saying, like, they didn't get through the ad and they downvoted, do we count it or not? And it was counted originally because they're just going to count it, and then if there's some kind of balancing that's happening behind the scenes, I believe that without having firsthand knowledge that could occur. I'm just saying that there's ways to understand it, but the optics, horrible.
Absolutely
horrible.
But I think a lot of it's YouTube. I'm not ready to blame Blizzard on this one, just because we've seen this sort of thing with outrage videos before, where something has a large number of people upset. So they go to behave. Well, you have to think the YouTube algorithm's goal is to determine, is this video good? Not, is it made by good people? So when you go out there and you're like, well, I'm going to send this statement directly to Blizzard devs by downloading every video of Diablo Immortal that I can find, whether it's made by Blizzard or not, and I'm just going to click, downvote, back, click, download, back, and I'm just going to do this, you look kind of like a bot. You're not actually engaging with the content, so you're not actually applying a rating that should help YouTube determine if it's a good video or not. And a lot like view counts, our view count that we can see behind the scenes on our videos is often different than the public one, at least at first, while it's verifying views, looking for fraud, things like that. And sometimes
making sure that we're not sitting here trying to scam our channel.
It takes time for each of those. So when you talk about something that's getting a large number of views over a very short number of hours, those numbers can be all over the map as far as what is being reported. So if you take a screenshot and then your friend logs in from somewhere else at a different time and takes a screenshot, those numbers are gonna move. They're just not meant to be as literal as everybody thinks they are.
I think the concern though is that the fact that they're moving downward is something that you don't typically see. I've never heard of a situation in which I've never heard of this situation. There could have been other videos. The last time I remember of a dog pile on any kind of negative was Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. where people saw it and were like, nope, and so, but I didn't even in that. And again, not on the top of my head, maybe it experienced something similar. If anybody's aware, if they did, let me know. But this in and of itself is like, yeah, views are going up, but the thumbs up aren't going up. And then it's like, if you kind of see that fluctuation, I think, who knows? We'll never really know. I don't think YouTube's going to come out and explain it.
No.
I don't think Blizzard. I think Blizzard wants to,
and they can't
be quiet and just move, move on.
Because if they come out, if anything is manipulating any of those numbers, it is there to make the platform more authentic from the view of YouTube. That is their objective. They're not in the. They only care about their job is to make the videos make more money as a whole, not to pick winners and losers. And so I think a lot of times YouTube gets more credit than it's worth. Like, there's so many hundreds of hours being uploaded. I don't think they have time to sit here and pick each video as a winner or loser. So I would be willing to say that they're not going to come out and clarify, because in the process of clarifying, they would have to kind of pull back the curtain and show us how it does work. And that's going to let people game it.
Yeah.
So they're going to keep it a secret. Unless you are seeing the view counts reset, if you're refreshing a page and it's the original video, that's not a re-upload, and any numbers that go up or down are entirely on YouTube's end. We cannot manipulate our view numbers. We cannot manipulate our thumbs up. We cannot manipulate our thumbs down. We can delete comments, but YouTube has a thing in that automatically flags comments. So if you come in here and just spout off a bunch of hate words back to back with an exclamation point, it's going to take that comment and it's going to hide it. It's also going to do what's called a shadow ban. And so a shadow ban means you are going to be able to see your own comment, but that if you log in from another user, you will not be able to see your own comment. And they do that because that makes you feel like your comment's still up there and makes it less likely that you're going to go on some tirade. And then they've protected the whatever BS you put up there from everybody else. So comments is something that both YouTube is helping manipulate and the Blizzard PR team would be manipulating, but the Blizzard PR team is only so big, obviously not big enough to have been aware that this was, I don't think they expected Diablo Immortal to get this level of negative press. So I would think most of the PR team would have been at BlizzCon, not sitting around flagging comments. I could be wrong on that, but this is one of the parts that I'm willing to give Blizzard the benefit of the doubt on. I feel like this video I've been really championing for Blizzard, and that wasn't my intent. But to get to the last comment here, Mike Morhaime left, Chris Metzen left, which is a while back. Now Blizzard is basically Activision.
This in and of itself, I think, is interesting, and a lot of people like to jump on that, like to jump on Activision, namely because Activision, from a gaming perspective, they were business first, not gaming first, and you definitely feel it through their choices and their actions. They do not apologize. They do not make changes. After the whole thing with EA last year, and it was interesting to kind of go into E3. EA's like, hey, yeah, no loot boxes in Anthem. No, we're taking these huge money makers that we invented out of this game, and we're going to do these different things. Obviously, the comparison there is then they talked about Command & Conquer being a mobile only game. So there's definitely draws to Diablo Immortal. But Activision's like, no, you're going to buy our stuff. Doesn't it matter? Nope. DLC for Activision for Call of Duty. Yeah, we're selling it to you. EA's like, Battlefield DLC completely free. We're giving it to you. We want to keep the community intact. And so that you look at that, and it's there is the thing. Activision is a fantastic company. They are not a gamer-focused company, for my opinion. And people who probably work at Activision are welcome to disagree. I mean, actually, I bet there are people who work at Activision are passionate about making games. But decision-wise, is they are a smart company. They're a company who makes money, and they're going to they're going to take a franchise, burn it out. I look at Blizzard, and we kind of talk about this offline, Chris. I'd like you to kind of maybe rehash what we're talking about, but I look at them, and I think that essentially, Blizzard's been cash positive, but I think they're completely independent from Activision. I think that they do pay Activision a part of their profits, namely because I look at it and I wonder why they went in the first place. We can only assume, but it seemed like to perhaps overcome some kind of hurdle, that they needed more cash. And so in order to do that, they merged. But they have, like you've told me, they've got their own budget, they've got their own things. They even make more money than Activision.
That is how it's reported. Everything that they report from a public shareholder standpoint, and if you want to go read the most boring documents, you can Google this. But they have their own budget. They have their own profit margin. They have their own leadership team. They develop at their own pace. Their games come out at a totally different rate and level of finish and polish than Activision games. Activision also owns, like, I think it's what, King or whatever, that does more of like the phone games, like Candy Crush and Farm Heroes and stuff like that. Activision is a holding company that is business first. They happen to have a handful of games under their own kind of studios, like you think about like Call of Duty, but Destiny. But like when Blizzard is Blizzard. And when people get mad that these people have left, one of the things I'd point out is like Mike Morhaime founded the company. The company founded in 1991. It is 2018. He was not 0 years old when he founded it. How long was he supposed to stay here? Like at some point,
he stayed around after the joining though. So it's not like he sold the company and left. He was like, he didn't get his payday and was like, I'm out. You know, he's like, great, now we can do these things, and he stuck around. When did Mike leave anyway? Like what year? Do you know?
Mike Morhaime?
Mm-hmm.
He left 2 weeks ago, right?
Okay. It's like, I don't.
Yeah.
You're the Blizzard guy. I like Diablo.
Yeah. So Mike Morhaime left 2 weeks ago and handed it over to J. Allen Brack.
Mm-hmm.
J. Allen Brack. Everybody's like, well, now it's dead. J. Allen Brack came on to manage this tiny little property that was supposed to take off. He came on in like the early 2000s to manage this tiny little thing called World of Warcraft. So like, it's not during the time that he was at that J. Allen Brack came on. That's why SC2 was pushed out. That's why Diablo 3 was pushed out. Everything internal at Blizzard, the amount of work they did on World of Warcraft, I don't know how they could have had any other team getting anything done. World of Warcraft took over Blizzard Entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And so for that to be the guy who's now in charge, and then everybody's like, well, then he just handed off World of Warcraft to some rando. No, he handed off World of Warcraft to a guy that had been on the team since, I think, like Pandaria and was in the industry before that. He'd worked on some other MMO. Either Brack or the guy who's in charge now, one of them worked on Star Wars, the MMO. So like, to say these guys are not from the industry and not passionate, first of all, I'd tell you to just look at their faces. The vast majority of these guys are not young guys, and they're not, and so they've been around the block. They've been in gaming. They know gaming. They're passionate about gaming. They've chosen this career that has 100-hour work weeks and all sorts of BS and an entire community that is so passionate about you that they will buy t-shirts and bobbleheads and put them on shelves behind them, but then go on the internet and call you trash when you get one patch wrong. Like, I don't think they chose this industry when they could have picked like banking and been off on Sundays. Like, I think everybody, I went to these panels, and the number of people at these panels that had been at Blizzard 15 years, 19 years was incredible. This company is not dead just because these two people left. It was never made of just two people. It started with more than two people, and it quickly grew to be hundreds. So one thing I would say is, like, is this company going to change as it changes in leadership? If that is what Mako's comment is meant to read as, yes. It will have to change. Times have changed. Gaming has changed. And the personnel will eventually retire or move on to start their own gigs or decide to take some personal time with their family or whatever. And we will see the new people do their best. But does that mean the core values at Blizzard have to change? No. And when I see these comments right now, not Mako's, but I've seen a lot of these comments kind of imply that like Diablo Immortal is the beginning of that death. Brack's been in charge 2 weeks. There is literally no way he could have had like the deciding hand in that. Like, he just hasn't had the job long enough. So I would say give it some time. Let's see what happens at maybe the next BlizzCon or two, and keep an eye on Blizzard. Maybe by the next WoW expansion, the first WoW expansion that Brack is totally the CEO and not involved on the WoW team. And maybe that is where I would start to maybe look back and in hindsight see if any of the steps along the way should have been warning signs that Blizzard was either on the way up or on the way down. But until then, I think it's too early to call. I mean, when did Chris Metzen leave? That's been a while. So I keep hearing his name. I feel like he spoke at BlizzCon, so he was there. Chris Metzen,
he left, but he's still around.
He's still around. So like a lot of these people.
Well, you're friends. You have relationships. You know, like you went to like a party and you were like hanging out with people. You're like, okay, this is cool. Like these are buddy people. Like these are developers. These are people in the community. Like it was kind of you were telling me offline. You were like, yeah, it was kind of fun to be like Chris, and it's like, yeah, oh my gosh, like there's that huge YouTuber right over there. Like, you know, just to be in that environment.
I got the chance to be around a few people that I was like,
it's so cool, but it's right. It doesn't matter. But it's like the fact is that yeah, they might leave, but it's like the fact is that these people probably get together and have these conversations, and they're great. I think at the end of the day, I'd like to my summary of it is that if you don't like Diablo Immortal and you don't want this property, if you buy it and if you give them money, it doesn't matter how many downvotes you do. It doesn't matter how many retweets or negative thoughts that you throw their way. You cannot give them money for this property if you don't want more of the same. If Diablo Immortal, like if we all sit here and say Diablo Immortal, oh, it sucks. Here's $1,000. You know, it's like they're gonna be like, you're sending me mixed messages, dude. First, you're telling me you hate me, but then you're giving me a lot of money. So as the business person in me says, they obviously want more of this. So just make sure that you vote with your wallet. That is the ultimate thing. Be sure to voice your frustration. I don't. If we stop letting Blizzard know that we're not happy with this and that we don't think it's the right property or the right place for it, I think Diablo needs to be on the phone. I just don't think it needs to be completely isolated away from everybody else. But that's going to be up to them. That's actually, in my mind, up to us. I mean, we've seen so much change this year, people.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely. If you don't want them to go to mobile, even if you don't download the game. Yeah. And if you really are that curious, download the game and don't give it a dime. And if you want it to be the death of the Diablo franchise, don't buy Diablo 4. That's it. That's the only way we vote is with our dollars. Chris Metzen, just to back up a little, left in 2016 after 23 years. He was at BlizzCon 2018. I thought that was him at the Q&A. Yes, to say that these people have left and that they therefore know that Blizzard is just going to, become this Activision thing, and we're going to get annualized expansions that have the same recipe. I just am not sure that that's a fair. And to say that every time Blizzard makes a mistake, it's Activision. Blizzard's perfectly capable of making their own mistakes. That puts a lot of credit in them to say that they are 100% perfect if Activision's not in the picture.
All right. So with that, guys, I really appreciate you and Chris coming out. Thank you, Mako. Thank you, Nazgul. Thank you very much, Mary Cat, Shadow Song, Fino, Lagtastic, Johnny, Brian, and Miss Moon. You guys, thank you for comments. Thanks for the thousands of other comments that we've received, that we've tried to respond to, that we try to communicate with as well. Be sure to let us know what you think about this and any of our comments and the questions below. Obviously here, there's a fun little screen I built that you can see right now where you, for following us on Twitter or YouTube or Twitch. These are ways you can kind of come let us know what you think as well. Chris, you got any final thoughts before we wrap up this video?
It's an intriguing conversation. I've loved interacting with you guys in the comments. Even if I disagree with you, I do think there's a lot of valid views to come at this. And I think that I understand why people are upset. I understand why Blizzard is confused why people are upset. And so I try to ride the middle and just put my feet in each side's shoes. Personally, I think that it's mostly the way, the place, the time, how it was announced, not the product itself. And I hope Blizzard goes on to continue to make great games that we can all be this passionate about moving forward.
All right, guys. For Work To Game, my name is Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks so much for watching this video.
And we'll see you next time.
Oh, excuse me. What's up, workforce? Chuck here, telling you should totally like, favorite, subscribe, share, dance, raise your hands in the air. I'm off camera. I'm off frame. I'm new at this. Hey, listen. Yes. You haven't hit that subscribe button. You totally should. I recommend it. Chuck approved. Anyway, also, thanks to all the Patreons. You're in the corners. Whoa!